When silence speaks louder than words, the deep void of space stretched endlessly in all directions, broken only by the distant glow of stars that seemed as cold and unreachable as forgotten dreams. In this vast emptiness, the Kelveri Empire's scout fleet moved with the confidence of a civilization that had mapped half the galaxy and found little to challenge their supremacy. Captain Zorvac stood on the bridge of the Stellar Fang, his four arms crossed behind his back as he studied the tactical display. His species had evolved from predatory hunters, and even after millennia of technological advancement, they retained the sharp instincts and keen senses that had made them apex predators on their homeworld. His elongated skull, covered in protective bone ridges, tilted slightly as he examined the readings coming from the ship's long-range sensors. "Captain," called out Navigator Thys from her station, her voice carrying the musical quality typical of Kelveri females. "We're detecting an artificial structure in Grid 77 Alpha. It appears to be bold." Zorvac's primary eyes focused on the display while his secondary eyes continued to monitor the bridge crew. The structure appeared on the screen as a small angular shape against the star field. It looked crude by Kelveri standards, with none of the elegant curves and biomimetic designs that characterized advanced galactic civilizations. "Analysis," Zorvac requested, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded ships for over 2 decades. Chief Science Officer Vecton, an older Kelveri whose bone ridges had taken on the silver coloration of age and wisdom, manipulated his console with practiced efficiency. "The configuration matches records of human construction, Captain. Based on the materials and design, I estimate it to be approximately 50 Earth years old." A ripple of amusement passed through the bridge crew. Humans were known throughout the galaxy as the species that had barely managed to escape their own solar system before apparently vanishing entirely. Their last known colonies had gone silent decades ago, and most galactic civilizations assumed they had either destroyed themselves or simply failed to adapt to the challenges of interstellar civilization. "Humans," muttered Weapons Officer Krax, his tone dismissive. "I'm surprised anything they built lasted this long." Zorvac held up one of his hands for silence. Despite his species' general disdain for humanity, he had not survived this long by underestimating potential threats. "Full sensor sweep, Vecton. I want to know everything about that structure before we approach." The science officer's fingers danced across his controls, and the Stellar Fang's advanced sensor array came to life. Invisible beams of energy reached across the void, probing the mysterious structure with the kind of detailed analysis that could reveal the atomic composition of a target from light years away. The readings that came back were puzzling. The structure showed no signs of active power generation, no life support systems, no communications equipment broadcasting on any known frequency. Even more strangely, there were no weapons signatures, no defensive systems, nothing that would typically protect even the most basic outpost. "It appears completely inactive, Captain," Vecton reported, his tone reflecting his confusion. "No power readings, no electromagnetic emissions, no thermal signatures beyond what would be expected from passive solar absorption. If there's anyone alive in there, they're using no technology whatsoever." Zorvac studied the readings with growing interest. In his experience, things that appeared too simple usually weren't. Life signs. "Negative. The structure appears to be completely dead." The captain considered their options. The Kelveri Empire was always interested in recovering alien technology, even human technology, if only to understand the capabilities of potential threats or allies. A completely abandoned human outpost might contain valuable intelligence about what had happened to the species, or at least provide insights into their construction methods and material science. "Take us closer," Zorvac ordered. "Standard approach pattern, shields raised, weapons on standby." The Stellar Fang began its approach, accompanied by 2 smaller escort vessels. As they drew nearer, the human structure became more visible on their optical sensors. It was clearly artificial, with the angular, functional design that humans seemed to favor. The hull appeared to be composed of some kind of metallic alloy. showing signs of age and exposure to cosmic radiation, but still structurally sound. "Captain," Navigation Officer Thys called out, "we're receiving some kind of signal." Zorvak's attention snapped to her station. "What kind of signal?" "It's strange. Very weak, almost below the threshold of detection. It's not communication in any format I recognize. More like background radiation with an unusual pattern." Science Officer Vecton frowned at his instruments. "I'm not detecting any signal. Navigator, are you certain?" Yes, I'm certain. It's very faint, but it's there. Like a heartbeat, but much slower." Zorvak felt a small chill of unease. Kelveri navigators were known for their exceptional sensitivity to electromagnetic phenomena, a trait that had proven invaluable in deep space exploration. If this was detecting something that their instruments couldn't, it was worth taking seriously. "Continue the approach, but increase our scanning intensity. I want to know everything about that structure." The Stellar Fang's sensor array intensified its probe of the human outpost. Energy beams swept across its hull, penetrated its interior spaces, analyzed its materials, and mapped its internal layout with microscopic precision. The readings revealed a surprisingly complex internal structure, with multiple levels, extensive computer systems, and what appeared to be advanced manufacturing facilities. "Captain," Vecton said, his voice carrying a note of surprise, "the internal complexity is far beyond what we expected from human technology. Some of these systems, I don't recognize the configuration. Could they be operational? Impossible. There's no power source, no active systems. No!" Vecton's voice trailed off as new readings appeared on his screen. "Captain, that's not possible." "What is it?" "I'm detecting system activations throughout the structure. But there's still no power source showing on our sensors." On the main display, the human outpost remained as dark and lifeless as before, but their instruments were now showing energy patterns appearing throughout its interior. Lights were coming on in corridors, computer systems were initializing, and what appeared to be some kind of communication array was slowly rotating to face their position. Navigator Thys looked up from her station, her expression troubled. "Captain, that signal I was detecting. It's getting stronger, much stronger." Suddenly, every sensor on the bridge lit up at once. The human outpost, which had appeared completely dead moments before, was now broadcasting on hundreds of different frequencies simultaneously. The communications array that had been slowly rotating was now locked onto their position and transmitting a focused beam of data directly at their ship. "Shields," Zorvak barked, but his weapons officer was already moving. "Shields are up, Captain, but this isn't an attack. It's information. Massive amounts of data streaming directly into our systems." Chief Science Officer Vecton stared at his displays in amazement. "Captain, they're not just sending us information. They're responding to our scans. Every question our sensors asked, they're providing answers to. Complete schematics, operational parameters, even historical records. The data flowing into their systems was unlike anything they had ever encountered. It wasn't the random broadcast of an automated system or the desperate transmission of survivors. It was clearly organized, clearly intentional, and clearly designed to be understood by non-human recipients." "How is this possible?" Zorvak demanded. "Our sensors showed no active systems, no power source, no life signs." "I don't know, Captain, but look at this." Vecton transferred his readings to the main display. "The structure is showing active systems throughout, but our sensors still can't detect any power source. It's as if the entire station is running on something our instruments can't perceive." Navigator Thys stood up from her station, her expression one of growing alarm. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple new contacts on long-range sensors, ships approaching from multiple vectors." The tactical display updated to show dozens of new contacts appearing at the edges of their sensor range. The vessels were approaching from different directions, moving with coordination that suggested they had been positioned and waiting for some kind of signal. "Human ships?" Weapons Officer Krax asked, his hands already moving to prepare their defensive systems. The signatures match human construction techniques. But Captain, Thys paused, checking her readings again. These ships weren't there 5 minutes ago. They appeared on sensors simultaneously, as if they had been cloaked or hidden somehow. Zorvac felt the familiar tightness in his chest that came with the realization that a situation was far more complex than it had initially appeared. How many? 47 ships, various sizes. They're maintaining distance but moving to surround our position. The human outpost continued its steady stream of data transmission, and now their communications officer was reporting incoming messages on standard diplomatic frequencies. The realization hit Zorvac like a physical blow. They hadn't discovered an abandoned human outpost. They had walked into a carefully prepared first contact scenario. Captain, Communications Officer Zeth announced, "We're receiving a transmission on standard diplomatic frequencies. It's in Kelveri. Patch it through." A voice filled the bridge, speaking flawless Kelveri, with only a slight accent that marked it as non-native. "Kelveri vessel Stellar Fang. This is Director Sarah Chen of the Terran Deep Survey Initiative. Welcome to Monitoring Station Alpha 7. We've been expecting you." The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of their ship's systems. Zorvac stared at the human outpost on their main display, no longer looking abandoned and derelict, but somehow menacing in its implications. "Director Chen," Zorvac replied carefully, "your station appeared to be abandoned. Our sensors detected no active systems." There was a pause before the human voice responded, and when it did, there was an unmistakable note of amusement. "Captain Zorvac, your sensors detected exactly what we wanted them to detect. The question now is whether you're here as explorers, conquerors, or something else entirely. Your next actions will determine how this conversation proceeds. The price of underestimating humanity." The words hung in the space between ships like a challenge wrapped in diplomatic courtesy. Captain Zorvac found himself in the unusual position of being completely outmaneuvered by a species his own civilization had written off as primitive and extinct. "Director Chen," he said carefully, "the Kelveri Empire comes in peace. We detected your station and approached to investigate what appeared to be a derelict structure." "Of course you did," came the reply. And now the amusement in the human's voice was unmistakable. "Captain, in the past 18 months, your scout fleets have investigated 47 supposedly abandoned structures belonging to various species. In 31 of those cases, the Kelveri Empire subsequently claimed salvage rights and annexed the surrounding systems." Zorvac felt his secondary eyes widen involuntarily. The accuracy of that information was disturbing, as those operations had been classified at the highest levels of Imperial command. "How do you know about those missions?" "Because, Captain Zorvac, we've been watching. For the past 63 years, humanity has been studying every major galactic civilization through exactly this kind of passive observation. What you're looking at isn't an abandoned research station. It's a monitoring post, one of over 200 we've established throughout this sector of the galaxy." The implications hit Zorvac like a cascade of falling stones. If the humans had been conducting surveillance operations for over 6 decades, they would have accumulated intelligence on every major galactic power. They would know fleet movements, technological capabilities, political structures, even internal conflicts and diplomatic strategies. Science Officer Vecton looked up from his station, his expression grim. "Captain, I'm analyzing the data they transmitted to us. It includes detailed schematics of our ship's systems, complete personnel records for our crew, and what appears to be a tactical analysis of our weapons and defensive capabilities." "How is that possible?" "Their scanning technology is far more advanced than ours. While we were using conventional sensors to probe their station, they were using something that could analyze our ship down to the molecular level without us detecting it." Director Chen's voice came through the communication system again. "Captain, I'm going to share something with you that might help explain our situation. May I transmit a visual signal?" Zorvac nodded to his communications officer, and the main display shifted to show a human female with graying hair and intelligent eyes. She was seated in what appeared to be a command center, with multiple displays showing star charts and ship movements that Zorvek recognized as current Kelveri fleet positions. "My name is Sarah Chin," she said, "and I'm the director of humanity's Deep Survey Initiative. 63 years ago, when the last human colonies went silent, it wasn't because we had failed or destroyed ourselves. It was because we had made a conscious decision to step back from galactic civilization and study it from the shadows." She gestured to the displays around her. "We realized that humanity's greatest strength wasn't our technology or our military power. It was our ability to observe, to learn, and to adapt. So we created the Deep Survey Initiative, a network of hidden monitoring stations and cloaked observation vessels designed to study every major galactic civilization." Weapons Officer Krax leaned forward at his station. "You've been spying on us for over 60 years. "We've been learning from you," Director Chen corrected. "Every technological advance, every diplomatic strategy, every military tactic used by the major galactic powers has been observed, analyzed, and understood. But more importantly, we've been studying the character of each civilization. How do they treat weaker species? How do they respond to the unknown? How do they handle first contact situations?" Zorvak began to understand the true scope of what was happening. This entire encounter was a test. A very carefully designed test, Captain. Your approach to what appeared to be an abandoned human outpost would tell us everything we needed to know about Kelveri intentions and capabilities. Would you attempt to claim it as salvage? Would you destroy it as a potential threat? Would you study it respectfully? Would you try to determine if anyone needed help? The human director stood and moved to a larger display showing a three-dimensional map of local space. Dozens of points of light marked the positions of monitoring stations, creating a network that covered thousands of cubic light years. This station is one node in a network that spans half the galaxy. We've been watching the Kelveri Empire, the Zethran Confederacy, the Altarian Republic, and 17 other major civilizations. We know your fleet movements, your technological capabilities, your political structures, and most importantly, your intentions. Navigator Thys spoke up from her station. "The signal I was detecting was that your monitoring system." "Very good, Navigator. Your species' electromagnetic sensitivity allowed you to detect the quantum entanglement communication system we use to coordinate between stations. Most species can't perceive it at all." Science Officer Vecton was studying his displays with fascination. "Director Chen, the technology you're using, some of these systems are beyond our current understanding. How did humanity develop such advanced capabilities while remaining hidden?" Director Chen smiled. 63 years of dedicated research and development, with the accumulated knowledge of 20 major galactic civilizations as our starting point. When you have access to everyone else's scientific discoveries, innovation becomes much easier. The tactical situation was becoming clearer to Zorvek. The ships surrounding us, they're not here to attack. They're here to ensure this conversation takes place safely. Director Chen confirmed. "Captain, the Kelveri Empire has a choice to make. You can continue your current path of expansion through intimidation and annexation, in which case humanity will remain hidden and continue our observations, or you can join us in something far more ambitious." "What kind of something?" Director Chen touched a control, and the display changed to show a map of the entire galaxy. Large sections were highlighted in different colors, representing the territories of various galactic civilizations. But there were also vast areas marked in gray, unexplored regions where no major power had established a presence. "The galaxy is huge, Captain. The known civilizations occupy less than 30% of habitable systems. There are entire regions filled with wonders we can barely imagine, but they're too far away for any single civilization to explore effectively. However, a coordinated effort by multiple species, sharing resources and knowledge." Zorvak stared at the display, his mind racing through the implications. A galactic alliance for exploration. More than that, a true cooperative effort where each species contributes their unique strengths. Kelveri tactical expertise, human adaptability, Zethran engineering, Altarian diplomacy. Imagine what we could accomplish together. The bridge crew exchanged glances, and Zorvek could see the same amazement in their expressions that he felt. The scope of what the humans were proposing was breathtaking. "But why reveal yourselves now?" Zorvak asked. "You could have remained hidden indefinitely." Director Chen's expression became serious. "Because something is coming, Captain. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected signs of activity in the galactic core regions. Something ancient and powerful is stirring, and when it emerges, no single civilization will be able to face it alone." She touched another control, and the display showed long-range sensor readings from the galactic center. The data was fragmentary, but it clearly indicated massive energy signatures and what appeared to be constructed objects of enormous size. "We estimate we have perhaps 20 years before whatever is awakening in the galactic core becomes active. That's 20 years to unite the galaxy's major civilizations, 20 years to combine our knowledge and resources, 20 years to prepare for something that will challenge everything we think we know about the universe." Zorvak studied the readings, his tactical mind automatically assessing the threat levels. The energy signatures were unlike anything in their databases, suggesting technology far beyond anything the current galactic civilizations possessed. "You're asking the Kelveri Empire to abandon 60 years of expansion and join an alliance of species we've never considered equals. I'm asking the Kelveri Empire to recognize that the age of individual civilizations dominating through force is ending. The challenges ahead will require cooperation, innovation, and the combined strengths of every intelligent species in the galaxy." Communications Officer Zeth looked up from his station. "Captain, we're receiving a priority transmission from Imperial Command." Zorvak felt a moment of concern. "Put it through." Admiral Korex appeared on a secondary display, his bone ridges bearing the deep scarification that marked him as a veteran of the peripheral wars. "Captain Zorvak, we've been monitoring your situation. The Emperor wants to know if these humans represent a threat to Imperial security." Before Zorvak could respond, Director Chen spoke up. "Admiral Korex, this is Director Sarah Chen. We've transmitted a complete intelligence package to your flagship, including detailed analyses of 17 potential external threats to the Kelveri Empire that we've identified through our monitoring network. Consider it a gesture of good faith." The Admiral's expression shifted as he apparently reviewed the transmitted data. "These threat assessments, they're incredibly detailed. How long have you been compiling this information?" "Since before your great-grandfather was born, Admiral. The question is whether the Kelveri Empire wants to continue facing these threats alone, or as part of a galactic alliance that shares resources and coordinates defensive strategies." Zorvak watched the exchange with growing amazement. The humans had not only revealed themselves, but had immediately demonstrated their value as potential allies by providing intelligence that would have taken the Empire years to gather independently. "Captain Zorvak," Admiral Korex said after a long pause, "you're to escort these humans to Imperial space for formal diplomatic discussions. The Emperor wants to hear their proposal directly." Director Chen nodded. "We'll be honored to meet with Emperor Vorthak, Admiral. And Captain Zorvak, consider this the beginning of a very different kind of future for all our species." As the Stellar Fang began its journey back to Kelveri space, escorted by human vessels that moved with technology far beyond anything their sensors could fully comprehend, Zorvak reflected on how completely the humans had upended everything he thought he knew about galactic civilization. They had turned apparent weakness into strength, isolation into advantage, and observation into power. Most importantly, they had recognized that the future belonged not to any single species, but to cooperation between all of them. The age of expansion through conquest was ending. The age of exploration through alliance was about to begin. Continue to explore more adventures in this universe where humanity's greatest strength lies not in domination, but in bringing others together to face the unknown challenges that await among the stars.